Welcome back to the booth, everyone. It's time for the all-important 3-0 game. It's all come down to this for Pod 1. Sam O'Byrne, Michael Murray, you guys got to watch that last game. And after the Zen mirror, it looks as though we're getting ready for Zen versus New. Talk to me about the matchup.
Well, first of all, that's awesome that we get one of each hero. The matchup Zen versus New is supposed to be New favored in the slight rock, paper, scissors of this format. New has the ability to interrupt Zen's hands. A lot of on hits and things that can rip cards out of his hand when Zen would really prefer to keep all 5 cards. So we'll have to see how this goes. 2-0 Evan Bridges versus 2-0 Chris Iaali.
5 AGE Pro team members in this pod of 8.
Wow.
So it was always going to only end with potentially only one of them making it out of the pod as the 3-0. But here, both players here doing fine after this draft pod, no matter what. A 2-0, a 2-1 for one of them and a 3-0 for the other. But you can see Chris taking a nice long look at that deck list because, as you said, knowing exactly what potential tricks are up the New sleeve is going to be important for the Zen player here in Chris Iaali to figure out what exactly do I got to play around.
Both players setting up. Chris hoping this time he can win the die roll. So far, unlucky twice in a row. Probably wants to go second if he can afford to. Or if he's allowed to, rather.
Also, Chris drafted, as we saw, a lot of blue cards and potentially even thinking about which blues he wants to bring into the matchup versus which blues he's happy to just leave behind, given that New is liable to play those blue cards after she's transcended thanks to that hero ability. So
That's
Chris,
a fantastic point.
Yeah, Chris was able, as we were watching the draft, we were thinking like, oh, he's got a bunch of blues here, and you have to imagine some of them are like, even right now, I might be taking some out of the deck just to keep New from maybe being able to make Crouching Tigers. But the question is, how different of a game plan does that, kind of mean Chris Iaali has to enact himself?
Yeah, I think the really key thing is to take away the blue cards with Go Again, because if you have a string of blue cards, even if they're 1-2 damage each, if you've got 5-6 of them in the banish zone, all of a sudden that's a lot of damage that Evan could potentially threaten with a big transcend at the end of the game.
2-0 Evan Bridges on New versus 2-0 Chris Iaali on Zen. These two players know each other quite well, practicing together for many a moon. Evan Bridges, a controversial player here in the scene, given his. I got nothing. He's great.
Yeah.
We just many people like to poke fun because
they
of.
do.
But
He's the villain at
exactly,
our local.
Exactly, he's always the
scene.
villain.
Because someone has to be. So why not him?
Evan, truly also such a good sport with it all.
Yeah, yeah. He seems like he takes it all in stride.
Yeah.
Plays the villain part that we all love and hate at the same time.
Both players here, time to draw up their 4 cards, starting off this championship match of Pod 1 here at the June AGE Open. Let's go ahead and get into the action, see who is up first, who's on the play. Trying to glean it based on the body language. Looks like it might be Chris, just by the way he's feathering those cards and giving them a real think.
Yeah, both of them just staring it down, figuring out their hand texture, what they might want to do. You see 2 transcend cards in Evan Bridges' hand.
If Chris can sniff that out, it means there's not nearly as much blocking potential. He's going to start things off with the Kakara. 2 Go Again. How much damage does Chris want to present here on this first turn? That's going to buy a nice Venomous Bite.
Yep.
Looks like
Looks
maybe
yellow.
a yellow. Yeah. Harmony the Hunt, this one's coming in for 1.
Probably just going to take it if I had to guess. With 2 cards that can't block, blocking one here would be potentially very dangerous. Oh, and he decides to just go ahead and give the stilettos here.
Now this attack coming in for 1. So let's see, does Chris Iaali kind of sniff out the potential of lack of blocking power in Evan's hand? It's just giving me another blue pouncing cheese. So here we go. This is not the most powerful hand, and it's exactly where you'd like to be on turn 0. You know, get a little bit of damage through, get a block out of the armor piece, and still you set yourself up with an arsenal and move through a clunky hand on a turn that it's not nearly as impactful.
Evan lucky that there was not more damage presented, as those 2 non-blocking cards could have really been a liability, as now he goes to 3 non-blocking cards.
Looks like 2 path well traveled and a grain that tips the scale. So this is not where you'd like to be if you're Evan, though you can still pitch into your daggers, but I think that Bonds of Attraction in the hand might be yellow. I'm not sure it's blue, so I'm not sure it's even going to get the bonus from either of those beckoning mist blades. So this is a tricky position for Evan to be in here on this first turn.
New would much rather see those chi cards at the end of the game. There's nothing in the banish zone yet, so the new ability is effectively off. and Evan just decides to send the bonds without swinging any daggers.
Now, because he's maybe here just going to transcend 3 times, activate new 3 times is potentially the play here. This is going to be a Bonds of
could be it.
Attraction coming on. So this
Get
one,
all 3 chi at the bottom of the deck.
then hope you don't get there.
Right.
Because you could potentially hit some good targets off the top of the deck with the new hero ability, because you can activate it 3 times and look at the top of the deck 3 times. But if it's not a blue on top, it's going to stay there every single time.
Yeah.
Nice, you can see the first picks there for Chris Iaali in this draft. All right, looks as though no blocks were presented from Chris, so it's going to be a path well traveled. Giving it go again. We're going to give it a second go again here.
I think that's actually the
Oh, there's
banish.
Passover and
Similar
Passover.
coloration.
It always gets me.
Mm-hmm. So yes, it's the...
So a little better now. Get a significant hit into the Banish Zone, as the Harmony of the Hunt is one of those blue Crouching Tiger generators.
Yeah, there it is. Passover on the screen.
Banish the top card of your deck. It's a red. And then we'll banish that from your graveyard.
So 2 blues in the Banish thanks to the Bonds of Attraction. Now both cards that, 1 yellow and 1 blue, so the Bonds of Attraction text is not online. However, now there are 2 cards in there. When we activate new, let's look at the top card for Evan. Going to stay on top, probably a red Biting Breeze if I had to have my druthers about it. But because we have to go again here, we can activate the dagger before utilizing the new ability. So get that second chi card out of there, and then we will still have a grain that tips the scale heading on to the arsenal for a further transcend. But now all of a sudden this Mistblade is significantly more threatening, because that pouncing chi could get go again.
Yeah.
Now that the new ability has been activated. So Evan had a tricky turn, had to kind of navigate something that might not have been the most intuitive, but has put together something much better than what it could have been.
That was very nicely navigated by Evan. Now Chris is deciding how important it is to block this Mistblade. He knows that there are 2 blue cards in his Banish, and he knows that Evan will likely play both if he does not block this dagger. So goes ahead and gives that Stride of Reprisal.
Yeah, and gets the Crouching Tiger, so you have to imagine that hand wants to utilize it well. He is going to go ahead and flip over the arm piece here to give it the +1.
So still gets the on hit.
And that's going to buy the cloaked equipment here
Amazing.
from
Getting this
Chris.
much equipment early is phenomenal for Evan, although I can't help but imagine he would have preferred to use the 2 blues in Banish. Thinking now about, there it is.
Grain that tips the scale, the 3rd Transcend card. So Evan's going to Transcend again, which means he can come in with the Mistblade a second time, and then we're going to have 1, 2, 3 chi on the bottom of the deck for sure.
Yeah. Definitely don't want to draw those all up at the same time come late game.
So now if you're Evan, you've bought both pieces of equipment, and your Mistblade has hits. You're able to come in with the Pouncing Chi and the Harmony of the Hunt. The Harmony of the Hunt, of course, could create the Pouncing Tiger to turn on the Pouncing Chi.
Wow.
Nu has slithered her way into Zen's head, acquiring all of the secrets and deploying them now against him upon the combat chain, as the Mystic Assassin has delved deep into her bag of tricks and come up with some ninja attacks of her own. 2 with go again, thanks to the Beckoning Mistblade here, so getting that extra point of damage. Now the Harmony here. Harmony makes the Tiger in the Banish Zone or in the hand?
I believe Harmony's in the hand.
So I wonder if he made the Crouching Tiger or not.
Yeah, because he pitched the chi and he has 1 more card. So
oh yeah, okay. He's got the Mirror Guy sleeves. Yeah. So this one's coming in for 1 now. This represents basically a dagger for 2, because if it hits, we're going to go ahead and also pump up the Pouncing Chi by an even additional 1. Meaning
so that Pouncing Chi could be, well, it's 1, then
0.
0, then 3.
And 3.
And look at this.
Wow.
Chris Iaali taking the back of not only a new turn, but a Zen turn as well. And in a hand that when we first looked at it, thought, man, this looks a little clunky. Evan Bridges turned it into anything but, even though now 3 no blocks on the bottom of the deck. But with Chris Iaali all the way down to 11, maybe Evan's thinking, I'm not even going to wait till we get there. I'm just going to get my opponent to 0. But Chris has a 5-card hand and a Crouching Tiger.
I think that's a great example of why Nu tends to be the underdrafted hero. Obviously not in this pod, but that was such a weird turn to navigate. I think it takes a lot of depth of knowledge in order to be able to pull something like that together, whereas Zen is a little bit more straightforward and easier to piece these big turns.
And the question is, for Evan here on new, has he built himself enough of a life gap disparity that some of the disruptive pieces he has in the deck and potentially even here in the hand could kind of, you know, parlay disruptive turn into disruptive turn, even if he has to eat some damage on this one and put Chris on the back foot.
And it looks like Evan has a lot of damage in his hand.
Yeah. This is going to be Crouching Tiger for 4, thanks to the Tiger Form Incantation and the Kakara. If you're Chris, you're, you know, kind of saving grace at the end of the turn is that Evan's going to be working off of 4 cards, no arsenal, because you don't want to arsenal any of those chi cards, even though he was, you know, potentially going to keep the grain that tips the scale for the arsenal. Did end up playing it for the Transcendence effect. 1 damage leaking across. Now it's time for an Emissary. This is going to go ahead and bottom a card, so it's going to be 4 with Go again. It's probably that extra Tiger that was created.
Ooh.
And here we go, right into another 4, and we're going to keep an arsenal. A lot of damage here thrown down from Chris.
Evan going down to 12. Wow, what a great turn from Chris.
Good crackback from Chris, and he established an arsenal. Looks like this is just going to be Nimblism into another stealth attack for Evan. As the hiss was blocked, it looks like it was blue, so not as powerful.
Mind's Desire, oh, this looks like a yellow as well, so only for 5 with the +3 on it. This card is looking for non-attack actions, I believe.
The Mind's Desire.
So
that makes
unlikely
sense.
to get much healing from a Zen.
Do you have
there
some?
are
Yeah, we have
options,
the
but
Tiger Form Incantations.
certainly not as many as if you were to play this into an Enigma.
The Wind Chalker. Those might be the only ones I think that are in. Actually, his deck list is right here. Let's see. First tenant of Chi. Got some tenants in there.
There's no
So 5 damage coming across, threatening to take Chris Iaali's life total down nearly by half. He's got that Aqua Seeing Shell cloaked. Not sure exactly what secrets Evan has. And look at that. Right as I call it out, Chris rewards me. Going to go ahead and pitch into the Aqua Seeing Shell. Draw a card. Get that 1 block as well. Got the Droplet in the hand. Let's see what else he's working with. Going to go ahead and put the Aqua Seeing Shell in front of this Mind's Desire. Showing up at least the 1 block. Got that Arsenal card. Looks like he might have drawn that Preserved Tradition. The question, can he utilize a blue card, get the Go again, in order to activate Zen's powerful combo effect? We saw Chris use Preserved Tradition to devastating effect in the game 1 of this series, and it looks like that might be the only block, so Chris going to take 4 down to 7 here. Banish the top card of the deck, and it is a red Untamed, so even though that is not going to get Evan Bridges any life, that's a nice, powerful 1 for 4 Go again attack.
One of his best 4 red attacks in his deck, so losing that does significantly reduce the amount of power in the deck itself.
All right, Evan's drawn back up, which means it's time for Chris to come in. Kakara to Go again. Can Chris force Evan to block here is the question. Not at the start of the turn. Evan's going to head down to 10. It's going to be a Biting Breeze following that up. This is 3 with Go again on hit. Going to create a Crouching Tiger, I believe, in the Banish Zone that can be played on the turn. And that Tiger Taming Kakara threatens to make this basically like a 0 for 4 Go again, thanks to the +1 on attack from the Kakara. Looks as though we've got a 2 block in the hand there for Evan. I think a Wounding Blow, that's going to block 3 as well, but Evan's just going to take it. That's going to create a Crouching Tiger in the Banish. Let's see if that's the only way to generate a Crouching Tiger on the turn for Chris. He's going to go ahead and play it immediately here, so coming in for 1. Evan's taking this as well. He looked like he might be just trying to fix to end this game.
Yep. Coming in wide and with a lot of breakpoints.
But wow, now look at this. The Pouncing Chi going to come in 4 with Go again. Chris still got 1 card in hand, 1 in arsenal, and 1 floating. Evan's just going to say, show me what you got. And the answer is a Flex Clause. This is coming in for 4 as well.
And he still has, is that 1 card in hand?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And it looks as though Evan was just trying to see how much damage Chris could really throw down because he has those attack reactions like the Venomous Bite that could have just gone ahead and ended the game. Flex Clause, when it hits, is going to create a Crouching Tiger that could be played as well, but it looks like we're just going to flip over our piece of ward equipment here. And Chris is just going to arsenal that final Transcend piece, which is going to head down into the arsenal there and see if a blue card will, shore up that damage. But Evan, he took a lot of damage to try to protect this hand. Chris has to be wondering what's coming on the other side.
The nimble strike is a lot of damage, as well as the nimbleism.
Yeah, you can play the
Bear with
nimbleism and then immediately banish it to the nimble strike.
I think he already has a nimbleism in the graveyard, so not necessary, but
Looks like he's just
Good for
keeping the
this.
nimble strike for later, yeah.
threatening 6, which is not lethal. Looks like Chris is thinking, like, how much do I care about this?
Yeah, well, at this point, Evan really looked like he was maybe trying to see if Chris couldn't make Evan block, Evan had a potential to just close the game out,
Yeah.
right, with that venomous bite.
With
So
no floating and 1 card in hand, there's not much of a threat of an attack reaction on this.
and now, Evan tried to protect that whole hand, but now he's just straight down to 2, and he still did have to block.
Yep.
As the crouching tiger that was created there off of the biting breeze was actually majorly important, as it
Yeah.
allowed that pouncing chi to be 4 with go again, which could then just be followed up by the flex claws.
Looks like Chris is just looking at every possibility that Evan could end the game right here, making sure that he can't before he decides to say no blocks. Or maybe he values his life total. Or maybe his hand doesn't play out great with 5 cards.
Yeah, well, also with Evan all the way down to 2, unless you're confident you can just close the game out with your entire 5-card hand, but we know it's just a preserved tradition in the arsenal there, so if there's no blue card that's easy to be played on the turn, can't get the transcendence effect out of it, Chris might be thinking he can pressure enough, even without a card in his hand for offense, want to buy the defensive value out of it, because all of a sudden, that Kakara is a lethal attack.
Yeah. Yeah. Evan hoping very much that the bonds of memory trigger on hit heals him. That would be a really big point in this game to be able to go from 2 to 3. Like you said, that gets him out of lethal range for the Kakara.
Chris,
And Chris goes to 1.
no blocks.
Blue from the top, and then Evan very likely going to grab a blue. It fuels his hero ability. It heals him. So that's the obvious choice, as Evan goes up to 3 and Chris down to 1.
All right, arsenal there for Evan. I think is it the wounding blow, or did he block with the wounding blow?
The arsenal for Evan.
Oh, it's the nimble strike.
Yeah.
Nimble strike. So now, there we go. We found the wind chakra, which is going to
look
allow
at
for
this. So he
transcendence
gets
on the turn.
What a good pairing.
Yeah, so that's going to give the next crouching tiger +3 because he's going to transcend before it resolves.
And he gets to use the hero ability. That is
Yeah.
tough for Evan to look at. This is going to be a powerful turn. 5 cards in hand. Transcend with the choice of card from graveyard going back into the deck.
So going to go ahead
Oh.
now, come in with the Tiger Taming Kakara.
It looks like there may have actually been a little bit of a misplay there. We'll check into it. The Bonds of Memory looks for the same name. So,
Yeah, we might want to see about that one down at the feature match. But before we get there, this is going to be an Untamed coming in
oh,
at 4-4.
and it looks like they corrected it.
Oh, great.
Very
Just
good.
like that. These players know what they're doing. Just takes them a second.
Mm-hmm.
But this is 1-for-4 with go again on the Untamed. It was blocked with that Impulsive Desire, so going to go ahead and just take the one is Evan. Now Crouching Tiger that was generated off of the Zen ability gets to come in for so much damage thanks to that blue
Wow.
Wind Chakra as well as the Tiger Taming Kakara.
And
And that buys the rest of the hand, which means 4 damage coming across. It's going to be able to flip 1 over, use the Nimble Strike, and that's going to be the game.
Yep.
Chris Iaali on Zen, the 3-0 of the pod. Evan Bridges falls to 2-1 on new, but that's a nice record for being the 1 of 3 new. And
Yep.
Chris has that 1 of 2 Zen. It's kind of what we expected after watching that draft. What a strong draft from him and a well thought out and well executed
Yeah.
draft game portion. He moves on to be the 3-0 of this pod here at the AGE Open.
Chris Iaali looking happy about himself after that game.
Chris here, not only the team captain of the Arcane Games and Events pro team, but also just like little paragon of the community.
Yeah.
Such a good guy, so well respected by his peers, friends, teammates, opponents alike.
And
Everybody
clearly
likes
very
Chris.
good. He's
Yeah.
made a lot of showings here at AGE. He's made a lot of showings at sanctioned events.
World's runner-up.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic player. Keeps showing us how to do it.
Yeah. So Chris Iaali moves on to the 3-0 with that just busted. We were saying it. We were trying not to give him the caster's curse, me and Bryce, but we were like, dude, that deck is
Yeah.
busted. My goodness. And he did go ahead and reward us for our faith in him and in that deck, because that was some nasty business. Let's go ahead and check out the metagame here of the first draft portion of the day. Look at that. We can have Enigma as your #1 most represented drafted hero, followed by Zen at 16 to News 13. This is kind of what we expect.
Yeah, yeah.
What do you
It's
think?
actually a little bit different. I mean, so the breakdowns that I've seen at the larger events, so much larger sample size, we get a very even split. So seeing 13 News is a little bit less than I'm used to seeing. 19 Enigmas a little bit higher, but overall, this fits a lot. This fits very closely with what I kind of expect. The Enigma pick is very, very powerful in this format, so it doesn't surprise me to see that one be at the top. The Zen being sort of the easier one to pilot, but maybe not so tricky. I think the really strong players like how Enigma gives them the agency to utilize their skill to eke out all the points of value that they can. A lot of really good players seem to just be ever so slightly favoring Enigma. And then sort of on the flip side, New just has a little bit of consistency problems. I think if you can't get the right deck together, she can just feel a little bit flat. Not as much damage output as Zen. Struggles into the Enigma a little bit. But overall, I think this looks like a pretty good spread and close to what I would expect, aside from maybe a little low on New.
Well, yeah, and what we've seen from many drafts in the larger events as well as the ones we've gotten to watch here, New is a more successful hero when she is less drafted, right? When those the assassin card quality is higher, the deck is better because it does have some trouble into the Enigma sometimes, and the Zen matchup, while it's can be nice to get that disruption across, sometimes Zen just absolutely runs over. And I think Enigma being the most represented makes a fair amount of sense, because Enigma, the games can be back and forth. They can be very close and nail-bitey, and they can also be 19-0. And that really only happens with one hero, and that's Enigma.
Right. And one other thing I will mention is that there are going to be 3 rounds, so this is not the final meta breakdown, but only the first third of it.
Yes.
So we could see these numbers shift throughout the day.
Because this is the completion of our first pod here of the day. Chris Iaali moves on to the 3-0 of the pod. God love him, our captain Chris out there putting in work. So we're going to go ahead and give the players a breather, get the feature pod area set back up once this round is over, because there's a whole nother draft we got to get to before we move on to the top 8. There's a bunch of 3-0s out there from all those other pods. We're going to put them all together in the top pod and take a look at, maybe we'll just follow Chris, maybe we'll follow another top player who is a 3-0 in pod 1 in the next round of the drafts, because after the smoke clears and the dust settles from that pod, we will have our top 8. But before we got to get there, we got a whole nother draft to get to. So don't go anywhere. We've got another draft. And if you weren't here for the first one, make sure you come and actually check out the draft process, because we have got some cool new technology, some cool new toys here in the coverage booth that make the drafting experience so dynamic and cool to work and walk through. So I hope you join us for that. It'll be in just a little bit, so don't go anywhere, and we'll see you soon.